So yesterday, we were talking to our NBA people around the league yesterday, and it was very apparent that something switched in the Jazz in the last week. Because according to sources around the NBA that we talked to, the Jazz are open to trading everybody but Donovan Mitchell, and that includes Rudy Gobert. The Jazz are not actively shopping Rudy, but Danny Ainge and the Utah Jazz have made it very clear that if you want to have a conversation about Rudy Gobert, the Jazz will listen.
Yeah.
And the only player that they are not open to doing business on right now is Donovan Mitchell. They view Donovan as a generational talent that they want to build this franchise around. And I say, amen, it's about time that that's the way that this organization starts thinking. Because I do agree that Donovan Mitchell is the generational talent on this roster, not Rudy Gobert. And this is an offensive league, not a defensive league. And to me, when you look at what's ailing the Jazz, it's not offense. It is, in my mind, it is a lack of cohesive team basketball and a lack of chemistry. That is very clearly the issue on this team. And I think, again, we're seeing this week that this ugly, whatever it is, relationship, fracture, falling out that Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell have had, it's real. It's legitimate, and Jake, I think it's starting to hurt this team.
Yeah, and I think it's something that we've been watching for, how long? I mean, obviously you've got the infamous, Rudy grabbing all the mics mocking COVID thing, but I think that this whole, if you want to call it a fracture or just them not having a great relationship, plays out on a nightly basis on the floor. And it's hard to say just how present it is in terms of, like, them talking to each other or whatever. I mean, obviously they work together every day, but the idea that Donovan does not trust Rudy, will not feed him the ball. You have speaking of Twitter, again, all the people who cover the Jazz clearly talking about, hey, the Jazz won't feed Rudy in the middle, and that's a trust thing, and that stems from Donovan.
But by the way, we don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah, we don't know what we're talking
for 3
about.
months,
Yeah.
3 months this season, we've been telling you, and into the playoffs last year, and a year ago, we were telling you that the Utah Jazz do not feed Rudy Gobert, and that his teammates will not pass him the ball in the post. And by the way, it was pointed out to me yesterday by a guy that works in an NBA front office. It was pointed out to me yesterday that Rudy Gobert is the second least effective player in the entire NBA with his back to the basket.
Yeah.
Rudy Gobert, the second least effective player in the entire NBA with his back to the basket.
Yeah.
They don't want to throw him the ball. That's not force feeding the ball. That's a group of 4 guys on a floor that don't trust Rudy Gobert and do not throw him the ball.
Yeah.
I think it's never been clearer than that.
Yeah, and I think what they do trust him with is setting screens and rebounding. And I think that it's not like the 4 other guys outside of Rudy who are on the floor with him shouldn't be vilified for not trusting him when his game, with his back to the basket, around the rim game, likely turns into a turnover unless it's a lob or, you're putting him in a position to succeed, frankly. It would be, imagine how different this team would be if, you had a Joel Embiid at the 5. If you had, your Jokic or your Karl Anthony Towns, or even if you had, a John Collins playing the 4-5 combo for you, you could work with that. I mean, you can do things with that. It may not be the defensive stopper that Rudy is, but offensively, you automatically got better. So I just think, to get back to the point here, the fracture in the relationship, yes, it does stem from the fact that Rudy's offensive production is not what it needs to be. And everyone's going to say, I'm sure they're already saying in the comment section, oh my God, well, he was 20-16. How can you say that he's not an offensive force? Well, here's why he's 20-16, because they shot 26% from 3. He was on cleanup duty like he is every night because that's his style of play. So, when I hear, hey, the Jazz front office is basically shopping everybody or is open to conversations about anybody on the roster except Donovan Mitchell, I say, hey, more power to you. Because right now, and this is what really pissed people off on Twitter yesterday, but it's the truth, right now as this roster is situated, they're just not a championship contender. Are they a playoff team? Yes. Are you a Western Conference Finals contender? Probably. But much past that, you're not going anywhere. And that's the problem. I think the Jazz understand, hey, we lost Gordon Hayward several years ago. That can't happen again with Donovan Mitchell. We have not been a championship contender since Stockton and Malone. What are we doing? you know? And that is why Danny Ainge was brought in. And that is why, as a Jazz fan, you need to be prepared for this roster to go bye-bye and a new roster to come in and be much more balanced. And I think that includes Quinn Snyder as well.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people asking questions about Quinn Snyder right now, and I think it's high time. But again, I just am curious, and I wonder who's got real value on this roster, because from what I understand, the Jazz have tried to trade Jordan Clarkson and Bojan Bogdanovic, and Bogey just doesn't have a lot of value. And the issue is, if you could make that trade head up, any trade for Bojan Bogdanovic, you probably would do that right now.
Mm-hmm.
The other guy that's become problematic is Joe Ingles. It is very clear that the Utah Jazz held on to Joe Ingles far too long.
Yeah.
That they should have traded him in October and gotten value that they could have gotten for him.
Because there were offers. There were definitely offers, and we talked about it on the show.
Yes.
And they chose not to do it.
That's a mistake.
Yeah.
And that is one of loyalty and emotion, which you would expect of a new owner in Ryan Smith, who on Twitter essentially said that he was not going to trade Joe Ingles.
Yeah.
Which now, looking back, is a mistake. This team is probably past its highest value for its assets that you're willing to trade, which tells you they're probably going to have to wait until the summer to truly tear this thing down.
Well, and I think if you look at the team and the dynamic of this situation, I mean, what you have to understand as a Jazz fan is this team's going to be bad for a year, in my opinion. I think the process that has to take place, to what you were just saying, is you're likely going to have to wait till the summer to really start to see big-time moves
Correct.
happening. You may see, you know, hey, this guy, this, you know, fringe player on the Jazz got traded for some salary relief, or like you may see some, you know, just some little deals, some stuff on the fringe, right? But when we're talking about mainstay, staple names on this team, like Jordan Clarkson, Bojan Bogdanovic, Joe Ingles, you know, Royce O'Neal, any of the main starting five, those guys aren't going anywhere till the summer. And if they do go before the deadline, that is a sign to me that they're like that the Jazz are in I don't give an F mode. We're getting ahead of this thing, and we want to try and rebuild it this summer rather than waiting to tear it down this summer.
But who's the real important guy on this roster? I mean, Donovan Mitchell is somebody who I think all of a sudden has fallen out of favor with Jazz fans. And there was this incident last week where Rudy Gobert was tweeting love to Devin Booker about his defense and his effort. And Donovan Mitchell, liked somebody saying, oops, subtweet at Donovan Mitchell. And he liked that tweet. I mean, I think it's ridiculous for Rudy Gobert to be pointing at other teams, specifically the Phoenix Suns, who are one of your biggest rivals in the conference right now, pointing at them as the team that's doing it right.
Their best freaking player.
While reflecting back on your team, the Utah Jazz and Donovan Mitchell, as guys who are not doing it right.
It's disrespectful. I mean, it's just straight up disrespectful.
And it is befuddling to me that this guy, Rudy Gobert, continues to do that. But the question has to be asked, is he right? And I think there is obviously a conversation around Donovan Mitchell's defense. I mean, you watch the way he, gets through screens. You watch the way he plays defense, 1v1 defense on the perimeter.
Yeah.
It's not good. It's not good at all.
Yeah.
But you have guys like that littered across the NBA that are superstars. Devin Booker wasn't a great defender until probably 2 years ago. And really, that's when he started being a wanting defender.
But what's the difference? In my opinion, the difference is his book was way ahead offensively.
The difference is that there's accountability in the Phoenix Suns locker room and there's not in the Utah Jazz locker room. That's the big difference, because when you have guys like Jay Crowder and Chris Paul, the kind of garbage that you see from Donovan Mitchell defensively, where he's not fighting through screens or he's spinning off of screens and assuming that somebody's going to switch, or just the lackluster defensive style of defensive basketball and stuff that Donovan Mitchell plays would never be good enough.
Yeah.
For the Phoenix Suns, would never be good enough on the Milwaukee Bucks or the best teams in this league that have real leadership. And that, to me, is what is really and truly lacking on this roster, is real, proven leadership.
Yeah.
You don't have anybody on this roster that's won a championship. You don't have anybody on this roster that you can look at and say, you're our guy.
Yeah.
Not even Donovan Mitchell. Who's the guy on this roster right now that you can point to and say, you're the one that we count on when the chips are down and we're in trouble, you're the guy. It's supposed to be Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah.
But because you play so much one-on-one basketball and because you lack systematic offense and because you lack a go-to offensive set,
Yeah.
you don't have that.
Yeah.
There's not confidence. There's not belief. There's not, hey, we've been here and done that.
It's not reliability.
Well, yeah, and I think the difference if you want to compare the Suns and the Jazz, the difference is now. Yeah, I'm struggling today. The difference is now that the Suns have been there and done that.
Yeah.
The Suns have played lockdown defense.
Well, and I think too, I think on the other side of the coin though, like when you look at what the Suns had to do to get to the NBA Finals, even though they lost, what you look at the process that took place. I mean, you had a complete change in the front office, which is what we're seeing in Utah now. And I think then what you saw is basically, I'm not going to say a fire sale, but you basically saw a revamp of that roster, and going and getting, the bona fide, hey, I've been there and done that guy and Chris Paul to pair with Book. Because at the time, remember, again, everyone wants to say, oh, well, DeAndre Ayton's this great offensive player, and you've got Bridges, who's on the basically the max extension, and you got to remember where they were as a team when these decisions were being made, so you can apply that same logic to your team in the Utah Jazz. Remember, this team had just gotten over an arena renovation issue with the city of Phoenix.
Yes.
Robert Sarver was in the news as basically a douchebag for the way he spent money and didn't spend money, and basically some operational stuff that he did. You've got guys like, you've got guys in the front office that just weren't getting the job done. I mean, think about it. You've had, the Earl Watsons of the world who were the head coach of this Phoenix Suns team. And so what they did was they just came through. They hired a guy in James Jones who has a plethora of playoff experience and knows what winning rosters look like in Miami. Bring him in. He's now running the team, and everything's good to go.
That's right.
Now, what have the Jazz done? Well, the Jazz have essentially done the same thing. They just haven't made the roster moves yet, right? You've brought in Danny Ainge, a guy who's built multiple teams that have made NBA Finals appearances and won NBA championships, and now it's just time to go through the process. So the only question that really remains is, hey, are we going to start fire sailing before the deadline to try to offload guys like Joe Ingles who don't have a lot of value? Or are we going to wait, play out the string here, let it get a little, worse, frankly, let this team suffer a little bit, and then we're going to do it over the summer? I mean, that literally, to me, is the only question that remains.
Yeah, I don't know what the right thing to do is. I do know what I think they should do, and I do know what most people around the league think the Utah Jazz should do, and that is trade most of their core, because I think the likely outcome here is that the Jazz hang on to Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. I think if you do that, I think Donovan Mitchell is not going to be a Jazz man in the next 2 years, because I think he doesn't like playing with Rudy Gobert.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that one of the interesting conversations I had yesterday was this. I straight up asked a guy that I trust in NBA circles if Rudy Gobert is considered a championship caliber player. And the direct answer I got was, this is an offensive league. Offense is going to win you championships, and Rudy Gobert is not an offensive player.
Yeah.
And I think that most general managers in this league would choose to build around an offensive player rather than a defensive player. And I think there's a lot of people who believe that Rudy Gobert's limitations are a big reason why the Utah Jazz lost to the Clippers last year. And I think what you're seeing now, and again, I was not aware of the stat that, and it makes sense because Rudy Gobert doesn't get the ball with his back to the basket, but that's a shocking statistic, that Rudy Gobert is the second worst player in the NBA with his back to the basket.
And I think
that's crazy.
It is crazy, but I also think it speaks to his ability defensively. I mean, that's just how dominant he is defensively. That he has such a lack on the offensive end, but it never gets talked about really statistically, because he's a defensive player of the year and because he's blocking guys all the time, and and he's doing all these things. But again, the tough part about this thing, and I almost feel bad for Jazz fans because you guys have been suffering forever, but you're right in the same spot you've always been. I mean, what truly answer this question? What is the difference between a lottery team in the NBA, right? Someone who's going to be in the top 10 for the draft, and a team that is good enough to be in the postseason, but not good enough to win a championship? What would you rather have? Honestly, would you rather have the hype around drafting high in the draft and being that team and being like, okay, we're going to start to build around some young stars like Cade Cunningham in Detroit? Or would you rather be this team that's got a bunch of turmoil in it and can't win a championship?
Hi.
Hello.
I think one of the biggest questions at the deadline, and there was a great piece, if you're not an ESPN Plus subscriber, you're a fool.
Mm-hmm.
There was a great piece on, I want to say Brian Windhorst wrote it, about your tolerance for risk at the deadline.
Yes.
Because that's really going to be a big one.
Tolerance of risk meaning like
in
optics?
terms of the Lakers were willing to risk Russell Westbrook's addition to that roster.
Oh, yeah.
Now who's willing to risk taking Russell Westbrook from the Lakers? Who's willing to risk Bradley Beal? Who's willing to risk some of these big name, big contracts?
Yeah.
Who's willing to risk? Think about not whether you want to, but pretend or propose for a minute that the Jazz do trade Rudy Gobert. Who's willing to take on $41 million a year on average in salary?
And what would the Jazz have to take?
And what would the Jazz have to take in return to get that deal done?
Yeah, nothing good.
And that's why I'm telling you, all these rumors and all of these, conversations are great. The chance that the Jazz right now today are able to unload Rudy Gobert's deal is almost nil, zero. But they've got one of the other conversations that I had yesterday was the Jazz just simply cannot afford to pay the luxury tax on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Their TV deal is crippling them. Their multi-right deal, which means streaming, social, video packaging, is crippling them because they're not able to create that content and distribute it and have content that they can leverage for partnership.
Because it's garbage.
It is absolutely crippling the way they do business.
Yes.
And that's got to change. And I know for a fact that behind the scenes, they're working on that. But right now, you're paying almost $30 million in luxury tax, and you have no way to offset that.
Makes me want to.
Yeah, when you're the Brooklyn Nets and you have the Yes Network, or you have, you think about the money that the Nets are into the luxury tax, they recoup that and then some.
Yeah.
Easily. On their multi-tier rights. When you look at digital product and you look at TV and you look at radio.
But think about it. Who on the roster is marketable?
Donovan Mitchell.
That's it.
Donovan Mitchell
Think
is
about
marketable.
other teams. Think about other teams. Think about the Brooklyn Nets, for example. Right? You've got Kevin Durant. You've got James Harden. You've got Kyrie Irving. You've even got Blake Griffin. You've got, a bunch of guys on that roster. I mean, you look at Chris Paul, for example, with the Suns. You know, he's marketable. Devin Booker's definitely marketable. Obviously in LA, you've got a slew of guys who are marketable on Clippers and Lakers. So I just think that the Utah Jazz are at the beginning of what's going to be a painful process, which is unwinding this roster. And it's really just going to be how long do you have to be bad to get the money right so you can go and get guys. That's just what it is.
And you're going to have to make trades because I do think until you win something, it's going to be hard to attract premier free agents.
Until Don proves he's that guy.
Yeah. Because I think you need somebody that is dynamic.
Think what happened with Book. Think what happened with Book, because this is the same thing that's going to happen with Don.
Yeah.
People question Book. Remember the conversation. How is Devin Booker not an all-star, right? And then he gets in when someone got hurt, and then now he's taken off to that next level, right? But the question now is not, hey, can Devin Booker win? Hey, is Devin Booker an all-star? Yes, he's an all-star. Yes, he can carry you to the NBA Finals. Now he's just trying to win a championship. Donovan Mitchell's not there yet. Yes, Don's an all-star, but people are still, and by people, I mean players, premier free agents, I would guess are still questioning his ability to win at the highest level.
Yeah, but I honestly think Rudy Gobert is a problem. I just, all of this drama, and if you read the Windhorst article, you saw that Jordan Clarkson essentially spoke up in a team meeting, and said, we've got to stop talking about each other on social media and taking shots at each other in the media. Like, I mean, I think Rudy Gobert's a problem. I just think when you have struggles, and Rudy Gobert, I want to say Rudy went into COVID protocols, and they were the Jazz turned into the worst defensive team in the NBA by statistics. And you look at that, and you clearly see Rudy's value to this team. And so many people say, well, if you move Rudy Gobert, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to spend the $41 million on other players that are going to take that roster spot, right? I continue to tell you that drama, how are you not a championship team, yet you are one of the most drama-filled organizations in the NBA?
Yeah.
How is that possible in this team? And when I say that change has to happen, it's not will it happen, should it happen. Friends, change has to come to the Utah Jazz, or you will forever be who you've forever been.
Yeah.
Because you're doing the same shit you've always done.
Facts.
And it's leading you to the same place you've always been.
Yep.
You have to change the culture, and what has been the long, consistent culture and mainstay on this roster. It's Rudy Gobert. And he's gotten way better defensively, but he's not really gotten even incrementally better offensively. And this is the problem with Craig Bolerjack. And this is the problem with Big T and
Holly Rowe.
It's all well and good that the guy shoots 70% from the floor and he's a record breaker. Are you really going to tell me that Rudy Gobert is an offensive force? Is that really the message you want to send?
Y'all want to play.
And I think that's what it is. I think the Jazz fan base believes so fervently in anything that Craig Bolerjack says and anything that David Locke says. And of course they're going to say, oh, Rudy Gobert is amazing. He's not. He's an amazing defensive player. He is a limited offensive player who is second to last in the NBA with his back to the basket.
And can be had by the best players in the world.
How is that possible?
Finals.
How is it? He's second to last.
Mm-hmm.
How is that? Like that? Am I the only one that finds that shocking? Like that is shocking to me.
Yeah, it's an egregious stat. But I mean, I guess, and on one hand, I'm like, yeah, I am shocked by that. But then you start getting into it, and you're like, well, I guess I'm not shocked by that because, hey, that's who he is. Like, that's who you are.
And this goes back to everybody's talking about firing Quinn Snyder. I agree they need a head coaching change. I don't care who you put in here. I mean, you could put Phil Jackson in his prime in here. You can put Red Auerbach in his prime in here.
Oh, I think there's not a coach you can bring in that would be able to win a championship, but I do think their better coaching would have this team in a better place, meaning the locker room would be better, the on the floor play would be better. The rotations would be better. You'd be using your entire roster, not just like 7 guys. Like I love Quinn. I love the job he's done, but I definitely don't want to be the guy that replaces Quinn. I want to be the guy that replaces the guy who replaced Quinn. That's what I want to be, because that guy, whoever the hell that is going to win championships with this team, and he's going to win many of them. And that, to me, is, just the position you want to be in.
I think it's interesting that there's so much drama in this organization, and I just don't understand.
Well, and what's funny about it, too, you've been talking about the fan base and how they feel about Rudy. What's funny is the fan base thinks that Rudy is the whole team, and they don't care if Don leaves. But then when Don inevitably is going to leave this team, because that's going to happen, I'm just telling you now, it will happen at some point. Mm-hmm. When he leaves, everyone's going to say, oh, screw him. We didn't need him anyway. And then what are you left with? Apparently a one-sided player who's the second worst offensive player in the league, apparently, with his back to the basket.
That's amazing to me.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me.
What are the people saying?
Let's hear from our public.
Yeah.
Our public. Kenny says, good morning, folks. I'm really intrigued as to what you guys are going to say today.
Well, be intrigued, sir.
Cody Strickland, good morning. Nice to meet you the other day. Bradlock says, morning, boys. This is a new direction, starting off the show with non-sports talk first.
Yep.
Well, just because I was choking on myself.
Mm-hmm.
Kenny says, whoa, whoa, whoa. Trade rumors? TF, yeah. Tanner says, hey, I was on your guys' side yesterday.
I
For
don't know
those of you
about
just
that.
tuning in, Tanner was like, hey, guys, name your sources, prick. Like,
You did what you had to do to roll up to the show and say that you were on our side. But I don't think you were actually on
I
our
didn't
side.
read
You were
much.
on the fence.
I didn't read much past, hey, name your source. I'm intrigued to know who your sources are. Get out of here. I'd love a shirt, but I doubt it'd get here, sadly. Kenny, where are you?
Yeah, where
Are
why
you
would
in
it
the
not get there?
Philippines?
Come on, guy.
Kenny, if you're in the Philippines, we'll get it to you.
Yeah. Yeah,
we
dude,
will get it
got
to you.
We got you, bro.
That's no doubt. Cody Strickland says, I need an XL. DM me, bro.
Yep.
Chris Karn says, morning, fellas. What's up, Chris? Got to talk about the Bears coaching here in a minute. Kenny says, I'm warning you, I am rebranding as a Warriors fan if we lose tonight. Well,
yes, sir.
you got the Houston Rockets at Vivint Arena tonight.
I think this game will be tight in the first half because I think the Rockets are going to come out and the athleticism is going to be hard to deal with for the Jazz. But my guess is that the Jazz, having just shot 26%, will probably shoot in the mid-40s tonight, again, at home.
Yeah. I mean, it is.
What are we laughing about?
Somebody asking me. It's funny. Like, somebody was asking me about creatine.
Oh.
Just because we put new affiliate links in our YouTube description.
Yeah.
And I took it out now, but the affiliate link I put for creatine is sold out because right now Optimum Nutrition doesn't have any stores of creatine, so you can't get Optimum Nutrition creatine powder.
Like, how is that even possible?
Do you even live?
I don't know. Brandon Whiteside says there's no fallout. The only thing wrong is Don doesn't play defense. It isn't a trust thing. It's a lazy offense. Well, I dare to differ. The reason that the Jazz do not feed Rudy Gobert is because you can
see it.
It's not just Don. It's everybody.
The only guy that consistently feeds Rudy is Mike Conley. That's it.
You don't see Joe Ingles, Bogey, Clarkson doesn't feed anybody.
No.
But you don't see guys coming in trying to work Rudy into the post because he can't swing, he can't pull through, he can't dribble to the basket. Like, this team practices with him every day. Do you not, on the days they practice, but do you not think they would give him the ball if they felt like he could score in the post? He's unguarded down there a lot of times.
Yeah.
Teams want the ball to go into Rudy Gobert.
He has no touch. Are we on the same page about that? Like, just so we're clear.
Yeah.
Rudy Gobert does not have touch around the rim at all, unless he's dunking. That's it.
Who are the best big man in the NBA who actually gets fed anymore anyway?
Joel
Embiid.
Joel Embiid.
Joel
Embiid. You know, I saw
Davis.
Bro, I saw a video the other day about Joel Embiid's footwork and how similar his footwork is. I'm not saying his game or his legacy or any of that nonsense, but his footwork is very similar to Kobe and Michael's. The way he operates on the elbow, the way he's able to cross out, like he's doing things that all the great scorers have done. And so, yeah, they do feed him. Yeah, when Ben Simmons has been out in his drama-filled escapade, who's been carrying the load for the Sixers? Yeah, Joel Embiid.
And by the way, he can do it at all levels. He
Yeah.
can do it at the rim. He can do it at the mid-range.
And he
can
wants
do it
to
from
end
three.
you, bro. He wants
Yeah.
to end you.
There are examples. Is this a big man league? It's not. It is not. But if you look at 7-footers in this league, and I don't count Kevin Durant, but if you look at traditional bigs in this league, Rudy Gobert, I understand he's a great player, but Rudy Gobert would not be a guy that I think would be the first big man picked off a line.
No,
I don't.
If Nikola Jokic, Karl Anthony Towns, Joel Embiid, and Rudy Gobert were standing on the court in front of you, and you were about to play pickup, yeah, I'm not taking Rudy over Joel Embiid or Nikola Jokic.
Look at what Cat did at Madison Square Garden last night.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he won the game for them. I look at Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic is kind of a jerk, a punk, but
yeah,
that's a talented big man who can do it at all three levels.
Mm-hmm.
I just think Rudy is very limited offensively. That doesn't mean he doesn't have value. That doesn't mean he is not a good player. I'm sorry, I'm really struggling with this cough.
It's cool, man.
It is It doesn't mean that Rudy doesn't have value. It just means that he's a limited player.
Yeah.
And as we saw in the Olympics, as we saw in the playoffs last year, when the game's tight and championships are won and lost, Rudy can't be on the floor.
Yep.
It is as simple as that.
Well, and the thing was, is he was had in the Olympics too. I mean, Kevin Durant went right to his chest and moved him.
Correct.
And that's what I think you would see. I know that's what you would see against any great player in the NBA. LeBron, Paul George, KD, Giannis, like any of those guys are just going to move him.
Cody says we look healthier in person.
Okay. Thanks, dude.
Okay. I think that's
I think that's a compliment, but I'm not,
I'm a man.
I'm going to be real, Kenny says. It seems like a narrative. I don't think their relationship is a problem, at least not the root of the issues. I think that Rudy Gobert believes that you're all right over there. I think Rudy Gobert believes that this is his team.
Yeah.
And I think that Rudy Gobert gets full of himself. And he goes into COVID protocols. They fall off the table defensively. And Rudy Gobert sees that as if I was in the lineup, we croissant, we'd be fine. Well, what I'm telling you is you're built around the wrong guy.
Yeah.
That's what I'm telling you. You don't build championship teams around guys who can't get their own shot.
Why you don't build championship teams around bigs?
You don't.
In the NBA.
And again, I just point to that Laker bubble championship. Anthony Davis didn't win that bubble championship for them. LeBron James didn't win that bubble championship for them. They shot their way to a bubble championship.
Yeah.
And Anthony Davis's biggest moment in that run was a buzzer-beating three.
Arguably his biggest moment as a Laker to this point.
And I'm just telling you, you look at what plagues the Lakers, this small ball lineup stuff that's killing that plagues the Jazz, this small ball lineup should tell you teams do not play big to win.
Right.
The best team in the NBA right now is probably Golden State. I think Milwaukee's making a push for that now that they're healthy, even though they don't have Drew. But you look at Giannis, what's Giannis's defining characteristic right now? He's only shooting 28% from three, I think, but his mid-range is knocked down right now. Like the guy has turned himself into a jump shooter somehow.
Yeah.
You're not built around bigs that play. Shaq is not here anymore. The era of big men
Tim Duncan,
Hakeem Olajuwon, Tim Duncan, and Tim Duncan really was the first guy who started this, in my opinion. The knockdown mid-range jumper for a big. He's one of the first guys that truly built a championship on a mid-range bank shot. I mean, but the guys like Kareem, Shaq.
Would you call Dirk a big?
I would not. Dirk was a mid-range playing power forward.
Okay, yeah, I think that's fair.
He had an incredible. He was a perimeter player.
Yeah, that's fair.
Who had post game, by the way.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Anyway, I think you understand what I'm saying. Brandon Whiteside says turnover Don is not playing great right now. He's not.
But see,
he's not.
To me, and again, I'm not trying to go in on you, dude, but it just seems like all you're trying to do is say that everything is Donovan Mitchell's fault. And I get it. He's the poster child of the franchise. He's the face of the franchise.
Right, yeah.
So, he's going to carry some of that responsibility. But what would he be? And again, this is why I keep bringing up Devin Booker. What happened to Devin Booker when Chris Paul showed up? Oh, man, we went to the NBA Finals. What's going to happen to Donovan Mitchell when he actually gets somebody who can help him offensively?
You need somebody who's been there and done that. You need somebody who's done what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And I think Chris Paul's a great example of that. He's a guy who had competed at the highest levels. He had been to the Western Conference Finals. Like, he is arguably the best point guard in the history of the game. And you bring him in and he raises everybody's game.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're missing on this team. You need somebody who's won championships. You need it's why, you read the stories in Washington about how close Bradley Beal has gotten to Cantavius Caldwell-Pope. And they're saying that, Bradley Beal wants to know, how does LeBron do it? How did you guys do it? How can I get to where you guys went? And that's what teams like the Jazz lack right now.
Yeah.
They don't have anybody that you can say. And by the way, part of this is Rudy Gay is the obvious guy. You brought in experience. He's been on good teams.
Yeah. What's that been for you?
but he isn't an elite player anymore. Chris Paul is still one of the best point guards in the NBA. Not the best, but when he got to Phoenix, he is still one of the best point guards in the NBA. And what did he do? He mid-ranged you to the NBA Finals. Now, water's wet and Chris Paul's hurt in the playoffs, and he had no hands left when they got to the finals, and it killed him.
Yep.
But now you look at what a year under the wing of Chris Paul has done to Devin Booker. Devin Booker's an elite scorer.
Yeah.
And by the way, now he is a more than serviceable defender. Donovan Mitchell needs that. And it ain't Rudy Gobert. He needs somebody. Donovan Mitchell needs somebody who can walk up to him, tell him how it is, and Donovan takes that as gospel. And who's going to walk up to Donovan Mitchell right now and tell him he's got to be a better defender?
Somebody who's an elite defender and a better player than he is.
And that doesn't exist in this locker room right now. Because Rudy Gobert trying to lay down the law to Donovan Mitchell.
He doesn't respect Rudy, dude.
There's nobody in this organization that can walk up to Don and say, you need to be a better defender. Because Donovan's going to say, or what? Or what? Are you not going to play me? Are you going to sit me? Like, that's what's missing. There's not toughness. There's not leadership. There's not a championship mentality.
Culture.
You're missing it right now. And I'm telling you, Danny Ainge is going to bring that. I am counting on Danny Ainge to do that. Hi.
Damn.
I just don't see any other way that this team gets over.
Yeah.
I really
Agreed.
don't. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, B-Mac, what's up? Good to see you. He says, you trade Rudy, then Don demands a trade a year later, and then we're effed.
You're effed now.
I think if you traded Rudy Gobert, if you went to Donovan Mitchell and you said, Don, we're building this organization around you, it's time for you to step up. He's not demanding a trade a year later. He's not. This isn't, the problem is the clear example in NBA history of this is Kobe and Shaq. The only problem is they had three-peated when, Kobe wanted to leave or Shaq had to go.
And Shaq was a dominant offensive force, perhaps the most dominant offensive force.
And then they did break those two up, and each of them won championships apart from each other. So you don't have that. So you're in a position where you gave Rudy Gobert a horrendous contract, an untradeable, unmanageable contract. So you're probably stuck with Rudy Gobert. Now, if you had flipped the script and you had given Don $41 million, okay, you could probably trade Don if you really wanted to.
Way better position for the team.
But you're not. I mean, I don't see any way you're able to trade that deal without putting significant money into it, and they simply don't have the money to do that.
Yeah.
They just don't. Difference is the Suns were a lotto team for 10 years plus, Brandon Whiteside said. Well, what were the Jazz?
Yeah, what are you talking about, dude?
How many lottery picks did the Jazz have in a row?
Yeah.
Now, they wasted all of them.
Yeah.
You didn't get your Devin Booker.
Yeah, the difference is that the Suns actually were good in the draft. How many Dante Exums do we need?
I mean, if you look at the Suns, they drafted a lot of the guys that are on that floor now.
DeAndre Ayton, Mikal
Bridges. Yeah,
Devin Booker.
I mean, you just, yeah, don't even get me started on that. Can't trade Paul without a bunch of lotto picks and lotto players. True, you can't. Oliver Ruiz says, but who would take on Rudy's contract? I think there's a lot of people. You need a dance partner. The problem is, Oklahoma City, who's got a ton of cap space. They're not going to get locked into some long-term deal with Rudy Gobert. They're not going to do that.
Although you've done business with them.
But there's no reason. There's no win for them.
There's no incentive for him.
There's no win. Like your Rudy Gobert's contract is. I mean, it
and
is.
You've traded every single pick you have already.
Yeah, you only have second-round picks to trade.
Yeah.
And I actually think you can't trade a second-round pick until the 2028 pick.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
the point is,
you're screwed. Like you are.
Yeah.
Dennis Lindsey's a beloved figure in this organization. Fuck off. He is not. Like he let you. Like that's how bad.
You see what's happened.
That's how bad that conversation. When we reported the day before or the week before that he was going to get fired. By the way, we told you that he got fired. We said this is a good day to be a Jazz fan, and we had all kinds of fans telling us, "Oh, Dennis Lindsey's a beloved figure.
He's amazing." Yeah. Okay.
Look what he left you with.
Yeah.
Look what he left you with. You have no draft picks, and you have no salary cap space. And Rudy Gobert is signed through 25-26, and he's going to make 35 this year, 38, 41, 43, and 46.
$46 million.
You're going to pay him $46 million in 25-26. So the problem is, if you trade him, you essentially are trading $150+ million. And this year, I guess the total value of that deal is $206 million.
Dude.
And this is the first year of it. And you're trading almost $270 million. Or $170 million. Who's taking that on?
You're so fucked.
You're hamstrung by this.
Yeah.
What you will have to eventually give up to get out. I hope I'm wrong. I just don't view Rudy as a championship caliber player.
Yeah.
And at those numbers, I don't know how you can argue with me on that.
The numbers make him not a championship caliber player in terms of money, and then obviously the play on the floor.
Yep, Teddy Wayman, morning. What's up with you, buddy? Good to see you. Kenny says, when's the deadline? It's February 10th. I believe it's 3 Eastern, February 10th. Edgar Garcia says, I agree with Tanner. The West is just very good. It is very good.
Yeah.
Jeremy Bolton says, Rudy Gobert didn't lose to the Clippers last year. Perimeter defense and injured Mike Conley lost to the Clippers last year. So let me get this right. You didn't improve your perimeter defense. Mike Conley's still here. Rudy Gobert is still here. And you're worse this year defensively than you were last year. And Rudy's the same player he was last year. So I don't necessarily blame the Clipper loss on Rudy Gobert. His limitations played a huge factor in their loss to the Clippers.
Yeah.
A huge factor. And by the way, you have no solution for how,
you want to talk about Mike Conley being hurt or all these guys being hurt. What would have happened if Rudy Gobert actually had an offensive game?
And why did you bring Mike Conley back at the money you did when?
Oh, because we're going to run it back. We lost because Mike Conley was hurt, and we could be a championship team. Yeah, okay, dude. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. BB says we should trade Mike and Joe or Clarkson and get Ben Simmons. But the Sixers are turning down massive packages. I mean, the Detroit Jeremy Grant package that was offered to Philly. And they said no, and I'm not going to guess. I want to look it up. Do you understand the amount of assets that Philadelphia is asking for? And you want to trade Mike Conley and Joe Ingles, and you think they're going to give you Ben Simmons?
Come on.
The reported trade is Grant, Sadiq Bey, Kelly Olynyk, a first-round pick, and Philadelphia didn't even entertain it. Philadelphia said, nah, that's not even a starting point for it. Jeremy Grant and Sadiq Bey alone with a first-round pick. And they wouldn't even have the conversation?
No.
Are you serious?
So your Mike Conley, Joe Ingles is not going to get it done.
Come on. I mean, I understand that Jeremy Grant's not a superstar. I understand that. He's a good player. That's a 25-point-a-night guy.
Yeah.
Sadiq Bey is turning into a good three-point shooter. He's a young player. Kelly Olynyk is a throw-in to make the money work and a first-round pick, and you said no?
You have options with those guys.
And you said no.
Yeah.
You said you not only said no, you said, no, I don't want to have that conversation.
Yeah.
What do you want?
So that's how it's going to be.
What is it you want? It ain't Joe Ingles and Mike Conley. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
That's going to get you that deal done. I don't know, man. I don't know. I think Philadelphia, Daryl Morey's got to be one. If he doesn't trade Ben Simmons by the deadline, he's one of the worst general managers in the history of the NBA.
Pack your shit. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, it's terrible. I don't to not even have a conversation that
They're not trying to trade
Golden
Ben
State
Simmons, dude.
offered you Wiseman and draft picks, and you said no. You said no. You straight up said no.
Because they're not trying to trade him.
The Bulls have offered you just about everybody, and you have said no thanks. Like, what are you doing?
Hurting Ben Simmons' career.
Washington wanted to have a Bradley Beal conversation, and you said no. I am it hurts my head.
Anyways,
It hurts my
we're
head.
running out of time. We have to move.
But will Philly consider Conley, Ingles, Malone, and Stockton in a first-round pick? They won't.
Yeah, seriously. Seriously.
They won't. Brylark says, I hate the we were injured argument. That definitely wasn't the problem last year. No, it was not the problem. It was not. Brylark says, I really feel like the Millers at the end of their tenure were just cashing checks and really didn't care about winning that much. I think Ryan really wants to win, so he'll make sweeping changes. That's the only thing you can do is make sweeping burn this thing to the ground and be bad for a year.
Yes.
Be really bad for a year. Win 25 games for a year. And understand it's a process. Kobe went through it. Golden State went through it. Everybody goes through it. The Lakers went through it after Kobe.
Yeah.
And you wind up with LeBron and AD. You have to, that's what you have to do. Now,
Price to be paid.
you're not the Lakers. You're not the Celtics with Jason and Jalen. You're not the Knicks. But this is what you have to do. And you better do better than Dennis Lindsey did. You cannot miss on Devin Booker's of the world. You can't. You just can't. You just can't. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah.
If Utah is going to rip it apart, Josh Lovren says, in a few years, why does it matter what you send with Rudy on his way out? I don't think they're trying to rip it apart in a few years. I think they're trying to rip it apart yesterday.
Yeah.
I think the Jazz, if they could, they would fire sale today if they thought they could get enough in return.
Yep.
But the Jazz are in a dire situation in that they need to be the third team in the Ben Simmons trade. They need Bojan Bogdanovic and Jordan Clarkson you've got to be the filler, the third team. And I'm tired of the Jazz being the third team.
Yeah.
I'm tired of it. I'm tired of them being the way station. And it is what it is. And we can go back and forth, round and round about this. Cody Strickland says, what I mean about you look healthier in person is that it's true that the camera adds weight because you look better in person, Monty. Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah, I've lost 29 pounds.
It's pretty good.
So we're trying.
What do you bench?
The problem now is we overpay Rudy significantly. Justin Salas says, can Don be better defender at his size? Yes, he can.
Man,
Far
this
better.
Don defender thing is just everywhere.
Yeah.
I I feel like it's all everyone wants to talk about.
We'll see. I think that it is. I think it's interesting to see what's going to happen. Clearly, people I talk to around the NBA think the Jazz are doing everything they can do to remake the roster, but most people agree it'll have to be in the summer because that's when you're going to make blockbusters. That's when you can do sign-in trades or, when you like Bradley Beal's an interesting cat. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent this summer.
I'm going to get paid.
Do the Washington Bullets, Wizards, whoever's
John Walls.
There's another interesting guy. John Wall's just not playing right now.
Just chilling, working out.
Do you trade a guy like Bradley Beal if you're Washington? Or do you hold on to him and hope that he comes back in free agency? Because I don't see him going back in free agency.
No.
I don't see how that's possible.
Way too many other options.
He wants to. He's made it very clear he wants to win.
Yeah.
And he's so good. He is so good. But then again, do you do what Dallas did, the Mavericks, and hitch your wagon to a dickhead like Luka Doncic?
Yeah, thanks.
Who, again, not a championship caliber player. Can't get along with people.
You're a douche.
I don't know what the right thing to do is in those situations.
Mm-hmm.
I know exactly what the Jazz should do.
You have to be definitive. You have to make a decision. Like with the Bradley Beal situation, you just have to say, okay, do we want to pay this guy and keep him here? Or do we want to risk it? and
can't-
likely not get him back.
You can't keep being the third team.
Well, that's what they're going to be for a while, unfortunately. But I agree with you.
You can't keep being the third team. I'll say that until I choke myself out on phlegm.
Mhm.
That you can't keep being the third team in these deals. It just it's killing you. All right, holy cow, we're an hour into this now.
Yeah, dude.
My bad. Sorry. Let's real quick. We need to get to the NFL before I remind you that we have 8 shirts left. I don't know if we gotten. I think I got one more. I don't know though. We have 8 shirts left. They're $25 each. We really appreciate you guys supporting the show. As soon as we sell out of these 8, I slept really well. I woke up without a cough. I thought I was over it. And then I sat down here and death has infected my lungs again.
Infection.
Please buy my shirts so I can afford to get this death out of my lungs.
Go ahead and buy your Dayquil on Amazon.
Yeah, really. Maybe I should put an affiliate link to Dayquil. But as soon as we sell these 8 shirts, we're gonna have a new design coming out. And we're gonna try and do things for like the rivalry game. Oh wait, that's right. They're not gonna play for 26 years. We're gonna try to do theme shirts as well, so we're gonna have fun with it.
Don't forget about Utah State.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Hey, how was that Craig Smith hire at Utah? Anybody?